It is Friday, March the 29th, the last day of March that we'll be doing Wager Talk today because don't look now, Monday is April Fool's Day. It's right around the corner. And by the way, a little advance notice, we're going to have a special promo for Monday, April Fool's Day. $9 best bets, $17 daily packages. So be sure to check back Monday because the Prez will be back as well. No fooling. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez one last time, joined by Teddy Covers, as always, here on Wager Talk today. And we have a great show as we head into the weekend. Going to talk a little bit more Sweet 16, Elite 8 action. Andy Lang leads it off. Also going to look at some UFC with both Andy Lang and Gianni the Greek. Teddy's going to have a big game breakdown for one of your Sweet 16 games tonight on Friday between Purdue and Gonzaga. And we're also going to have a little What Bettors Learn covering some baseball because, of course, yesterday was opening day on Thursday. And then we finish it off with Arthur DiCesare from the Westgate Superbook. More NCAA tournament action talk, also maybe a little MLB opening day talk with Art as well. So loaded show, stay with us. And let's start right off the bat with Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com. And Andy, you co-hosted with me on Tuesday, filled in for Teddy. And you mentioned that your interpreters' picks have been doing extremely well in the NCAA tournament because you're a square and you don't follow the NCAA tournament. So looking forward to hearing if your interpreter has translated anything for this weekend's card, perhaps. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. My interpreter is doing well. It's a fairly busy week for him, you might have seen. But he's laid off the last couple days, and he's back. So he really, really likes Illinois under their team total, 73.5. And it is pretty hard to argue that you're going to take a team to do really, really well against UConn. So, this Illinois team, they put up huge points against Morehead State and Duquesne, but they scored 85 and 89 points against them, and then they drop all the way down to 72 against Iowa State. A great defense. I'm sad to see Iowa State out of the tournament. They've been a really good cash cow, playing their defense. But, who's playing better defense than UConn right now? Like, it's pretty hard to argue. 52 points to Stetson, 58 to Northwestern, 52 to San Diego State. So I think it's pretty simple here. It's just this dominant team that just seems to be playing their best basketball of the season right now. And as much as Illinois is pretty good, they did struggle at times to score against Iowa State. So all you need is a few cold stretches from Illinois, and they go under this total.
Based on Ken Palm's numbers, Iowa State's got the better defense compared to UConn. And Illinois right now, again, according to Ken Palm's numbers, the number 2 offensive team in the nation. The only team better? The UConn Huskies. But that's why at first glance, this total was like, what? We're talking about 2 really good defensive teams, and yet we got a total in the 150s. But the offensive prowess for both these squads has been tremendous. But if Illinois can get to 72 against Iowa State, an elite defensive team that plays with no pace and doesn't shoot that well, they get to 72 against that team. Can't they get over that against UConn, who's going to play faster, where the offensive needs for Illinois are going to be greater than they were in the last game? Are you worried at all that the Illini number 2 ranked offense is going to be a problem for the Huskies defense, or the pace is going to be a problem in this ballgame?
Yeah, the pace could be one thing, but when you it's kind of just the eye test when you're watching UConn. Man, can they just frustrate these other teams? And when they really, really buckle down and they get going, when they make teams play their game, it's just impossible for these teams to pick it up. And even though they play with a high pace, it works for their offense, but it just doesn't seem to be working for the opposing team's offense. It just feels like UConn is peaking at the perfect time. I know Iowa State's been fantastic throughout the year, and their rating has been very, very consistent. They've been a top 3 defense the entire time. The tournament just feels a little bit different, and it feels like this UConn team, nobody's playing better than them right now. So any way I can take advantage of, fading the opponents of UConn, I'll be happy to do.
And UConn being the number 1 offense is something new. That was not the case going into the games last night. They have leapfrogged everybody now with another double-digit win. It's 8 or 9 straight tournament wins. They've all been by 13-point margins or more, and they are now the number 1 efficient offense. Illinois falls to 2. Bama is still number 4 even after winning last night. They've been 1 or 2 basically all season. And as Teddy said, Iowa State the number 1 D. One thing, guys, last night we had 3 of the 4 games. The underdog won outright, of course, after the chalk-heavy weekend last weekend. And if you notice, those 3 dogs all had a weaker defensive rating than the team they beat. But with both Illinois and also Alabama, they had a higher offensive rating than the team they beat as a dog. And 2 teams qualified tonight, the Duke Blue Devils, the weaker defense, stronger offense, and Creighton, the slightly weaker defense but stronger offense as dogs tonight for what it's worth. We'll see if that continues into the Friday action. All right, that was Andy Lang interpreting for his interpreter who does the college hoops for him on the side when he's not in prison. And now we're going to look at some UFC, which is Andy's real sport heading into the weekend. Andy, what's something you like in the fight this weekend on Saturday? Atlantic City, I believe.
Yeah, this is Atlantic City. Should be a really good card. A lot of fighters that are from that area are getting a chance to fight in front of their hometown crowd, family, and friends. So should be a really, really fun, electric card with some of these fights. I'm looking at Bill Algeo versus Kyle Nelson, and I think we're getting really, really amazing value on Bill Algeo to win by decision. So first off, I will say, if you're looking for a parlay piece, I think Bill Algeo just on the money line at minus 245 is a really, really good spot. Bill Algeo is fighting Kyle Nelson, and Kyle Nelson, while he is 2-0 in his last 2 fights, I went back and watched his last fight. I'm pretty sure the judges gave it to the wrong guy. I was waiting to watch that fight and find reasons how Kyle Nelson won, and I really just couldn't find it. So I think he really squeaked by with that one, and it wasn't that impressive. Kyle Nelson's been around a while, and he just doesn't do anything great. Like, he's a veteran, so he knows how to strike okay. He knows how to grapple okay. But he's going up against Bill Algeo, who is going to have longer reach. He's going to have more weapons. And Bill Algeo is just going to be better if he can get this one to the ground. And I think that's where Algeo is going to be doing a lot of his damages in close, and he's going to get it on the ground. I just don't see a whole lot of upside to Kyle Nelson. And also, we have one of my favorite theories, which is fade the baby theory. Kyle Nelson and his fiance just had a baby last week. And fading these fighters that just recently have newborn babies, it throws off their practice schedule. It throws their sleep schedule off a little bit. And this has been a very profitable thing for us to do, is fading these fighters that are just coming off of new babies. So we have that going for us. And as far as to go by decision, he's minus 245 to win. And we're getting plus 120 to win by decision. I do think Kyle Nelson is game. He's a really tough fighter to try and get out of there. He won his last one by decision. The previous fight, he won by decision, and the previous was a draw, which meant that one went to decision. And even in his fight before that against Jai Herbert, he lost. That went to decision. So these are guys with very good cardio. Neither one of them is going to gas out. I don't see a knockout coming from anyone. So to get a minus 245 fighter that I like to win, to get him plus 120 in a fight that I think is going to go to the distance is really good value. So I'll take Algeo plus 120. If you just need a parlay piece, just take Algeo on the money line.
So you and Gianni were on the show, I forget if it was a week or 2 ago, and you were arguing about the fade the baby theory, and he liked one side and you liked the other. Did the fade the baby theory work in that fight as well? And how long, like, what's our time frame here for fading the baby? Is it like, all right, the first month after he's born, the first 3 months, 6 months, or just in general?
Probably less than a month, especially for newborns and your first one. Like, the fighters that have their first kid within a month of a fight, I mean, forget about it. Like, these guys are a mess. It's the same thing with golf, Teddy. Like, these golfers that have their first baby, they are an absolute mess for the first month. You can see that their sleep isn't right. You can see that their practice isn't right. And we've been doing this for years. Like, a lot of guys like to watch film on fighters, which I do as well, but I also like to check their social media and see what's going on in the personal life. It makes a big difference, and I don't think the books put this into the math equation when coming up with the line, so we end up just finding really good value. I mean, how do you put into the line, like, oh, this guy just had a baby? So I feel like I have the advantage with that, and it's going to cash again. I can't wait to fade. Kyle Nelson. Give me Algeo on the fade the baby theory. Let's keep it running.
No, I love it, Andy, and I've listened to you for many years, and the first thing I thought of was golf, because I heard you first say that a couple years ago with the golf, and it makes so much sense because both golf, tennis, it would work as well, obviously, and then UFC, these individual sports, there's no teammates to pick them up if they're having an off night, right? You're not handicapping the team, you're handicapping the individual.
Exactly.
NASCAR would be something we could dig into also. I think it'd work a little less in NASCAR because that's kind of a 3-hour one and done. You're out of there and you're probably pretty focused inside the car. But yeah, it's the sleep, it's the routine, and golfers especially creatures of habit. So I love it for golf, but UFC would be pretty close for creatures of habit, training regime, diet, and it's that sleep, like you said. Your schedule is kicked off right before an event. I think it's a great angle. And this big picture, everybody, handicapping in general, you want to find situations in which something is different than the generic odds would say. The odds are set based on past results, future expectations, all things equal. If you can find that X factor, that's a little bit of alpha in the handicapping process. All right, that's Andy Lang, UFC. He's also had his interpreter's pick for tomorrow's Elite Eight. And now we're going to look at the NBA. And you had a great nickname when you were on Tuesday. I'm still laughing about it. What was it? Pleasure Man for the UFC fight that you broke down, which is probably one of the best nicknames ever. The Pleasure Man. Just don't go to the ground with the Pleasure Man. You got to finish him standing up. But we're going to go to the NBA now. The Bald Mamba you want to talk about from his days in LA is now with the Bulls. This is also a great nickname. Alex Caruso prop tonight.
Yeah, for the record, I did not give him that nickname. He gave himself that nickname.
He gave it to himself, even worse.
Yeah. Yes. So,
well, actually, I guess it's better than the opponents giving it to him. That would be even worse, but nonetheless.
That's true. But it is an odd nickname to land on when you're like, okay, what do I want to be known as in the UFC? A sport filled with killers. I know, the Pleasure Man. Let's take a look at Alex Caruso. This is a great one. Over 1.5 made 3-pointers. He has been on fire on this prop. He's gone over this in 7 out of 8 games. The books are putting this around minus 142, minus 145. If this thing stays below minus 150, absolutely play it. It's a dream matchup against Brooklyn. They're 22nd in 3-point percentage defense. And what I love about this play is his attempts are way up. In the last 8 games where he's all of a sudden gone in the streak of going over, he's attempting 5.8 3-point shots per game. This is a guy who averages 4.6 for the season, and he's shooting 41.6% this month from 3. So he's getting the volume, and he's been more accurate from behind the line. The Bulls are looking for offense from anywhere they can get it, and Alex Caruso is doing a pretty nice job from 3-pointers. I'm surprised the books haven't bumped this up to 2.5. So if he goes over again tonight, maybe the next game, I don't think we're going to see this 1.5 number. So wanted to bring this one up while they still have Alex Caruso at 1.5 made threes.
So I'm not seeing it on the WagerTalk Live odds screen injury report, but I watched the Bulls the other night, and it looked to me like he's limping. He's got a bad ankle. Does that worry you at all? Obviously, at this late stage of the campaign, everybody in the NBA is dealing with something. But an ankle injury and an over 3-point prop, to me, that's a dicey combination. Are you concerned at all?
Oh, I might go the other way. Less drives to the basket, stand on the outside and shoot threes. If you got a little bit of a bad ankle, I actually wonder if that's why the attempts have gone up. Like, if you got a little bit of a bad ankle, do you really want to drive in and jump up and leave your feet and land on somebody's foot, or do you want to stand outside and hopefully DeRozan kicks you one outside? So no, he's been going over with this nagging injury. And you're right, he's not the same explosive guy at the beginning of the season. You can see it on defense a lot, but no, it doesn't worry me. He's just been shooting a lot more. We got the volume, we got the make percentage. And it is odd that he tweaked his ankle and his make percentage goes up. Probably no correlation, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, that's exactly right. The ankle ain't broken. That's probably why it's going up. It's not enough of an injury. But I love that angle, by the way. I do think if you're hobbled, you don't drive as much. You take more threes. You settle for more outside shots. So it's another great way to look at it. It's another reason why Andy Lang is such a great way to diversify your portfolio. And I say this every time Andy's on, not just because he has a great choice in collared shirts, royal blue, but also because he does diversify. He honestly doesn't do the NCAA tournament. His interpreter is a joke for those of you that are new to the show. It's a light lean only, just something to talk about. But he does cover UFC, does NBA player props, as you see. He does golf. He does motorsports. Guess what? Teddy and I don't cover much of that, just a little bit. So, this is a way to do it, just a little bit. So 7 days, promo code Andy, instant 30% discount. Tell us about it. It's a great way to get a 7-day pass to try all those different sports from you.
Yeah, promo code Lang7 gets $30 off a 7-day pass. Coming off a 4-0 night last night, we were 3-0 in NHL, 1-0 in MLB, and we've got MLB play up as well as an NBA play up. 5% UFC play goes off tomorrow, and we are number one this year in 5% plays in the UFC, 4-1. So those have been really, really good to us. We also have a bare knuckle fighting championship best bet that is up right now. That should be available everywhere. So it is the best way to take advantage of us is to just get all of these sports. We got a lacrosse best bet that is up 16-6 this year on those plays. So running hot in a lot of sports, plus 48 units for the year. Really proud of that. And we always say, it's best to try 7 days, try 30 days, so you can see a little bit of everything that we do. You get a good glimpse of our write-ups, and it's the best way to get a long-term approach. So promo code LANG7, $30 off 7-day pass. Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com.
The prop master, Andy Lang, and just looking at his last 20. And by the way, you can go back to everyone's page at WagerTalk.com and look at their last 20 results, including last night. You can click on them to see the analysis, the reasoning. And Andy is a perfect example of why. This last 20, golf, NBA, lacrosse, NHL, tennis, motorsports, darts, bare knuckle fighting he just mentioned. I mean, if that's not a potpourri of diversification, I don't know what it is. That's Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com. And Teddy, another way to diversify now with the March Madness going on, the NBA playoffs around the corner, the NHL is the MLB, because baseball started in full swing, no pun intended, yesterday on Thursday. What's your approach to the MLB season? What advice can we give bettors? What can bettors learn?
Well, I want to talk about what a grind means when it comes to betting on sports. And MLB, truly the ultimate grind. And grind, we think about it, it's not really a positive. We're like, yeah, let's go for the grind. But if you do it right in any sport, you're supposed to end up with a profitable season. So to beat MLB, you've got to work every day. I mean, it's 7 days a week. I usually take a break right before or after the All-Star break because I need it, and that's the only break I get all year. But other than that, it's an everyday thing. 7 days a week, holidays, et cetera, et cetera. It's important to have realistic expectations and realistic goals when you're trying to grind out a profit all spring and summer and fall. You're going to have losing nights in baseball, plenty of them over the summer. You're going to have some losing weeks. You're likely to have a losing month or two, even in the midst of a profitable season. Not maybe. These things are going to happen. You're going to lose some games in frustrating fashion. Botched ground balls, drop pop flies, blooped singles that drive in 2 runs with 2 outs and 2 strikes in the ninth, blown saves, blown leaves, the works. If you bet baseball every day, it's just a matter of how many frustrating losses and how grouped together they're going to be. All that being said, the grind is also about maximizing your hot streaks. That's where you make your money in MLB. That's where I make my money in MLB. 2 weeks here, 3 weeks there, 2 weeks here, another 2 weeks somewhere else. If you can break even for most of the year and put together 2 or 3 or 4 hot streaks, it's going to be a good year betting baseball. And when you're hot and you're grinding, that's when you play everything you're thinking of playing. That's when you push your units up. Handful of times during the season when you are seeing things clearly. And that's my goal. Lots of pushing, trading a little bit of money back and forth, a handful of good hot streaks. When I'm on one, don't worry, I'll let you guys know. So enjoy the grind, my friends. Stay thirsty. I'll talk about some tips for beating early season MLB one day next week. Steve, back to you, my friend.
Yeah, and it's a perfect segue to our next guest, Teddy, because Gianni the Greek takes a long-term grind approach more than any capper I think we know, and he also does extremely well doing it. We're going to talk some UFC in a moment with Gianni, but I want to ask you first, Ace, about the grind baseball. The last 3 years alone, you've won over 253 units for your clients at WagerTalk.com. I'm sure you're playing underdogs, favorites, but it's the one sport in which winning is all that matters, right? So it's so tricky for amateur bettors because they just want to lay the favorites because they want to get that win on a nightly basis. But you have to be willing to take some below 50% long-term plays on plus money prices to really make money in baseball.
I get asked all the time, what's my favorite sport to bet? And it's a 2-part question because my favorite sport to bet, I love betting MMA because it's actually the one sport that I watch. So I enjoy watching my bets. But if I had to choose just one bet that one sport that I can bet, they say you can only bet one sport, nothing else, baseball automatically. I think because that gives me the greatest opportunity year in and year out to profit. And I feel confident that over a 10-year span, that will produce the most profit for me because it will allow me to place the most wagers based on the schedule. And that for me is volume is everything, kind of like a card counter. You give me enough hands, I'm going to beat you. You let me place enough bets, I'm going to beat you. And baseball allows for that statistical significance where other sports don't. And for me, it's that simple. And real quickly, I do have MMA that I'm going to use for best bets, but I also have Sweet 16, Major League Baseball, NBA, and soccer for today. So I know a lot of people were asking on Twitter. I will share those towards the end for sure.
Awesome.
Well, let's start with some UFC. And we're talking about one of the fights on the undercard in Atlantic City on Saturday night. That would be, and I just had it, and now I lost it. Jacob Malkoun. Jakob or Jacob? Malkoun.
Jacob Malkoun.
230. Yeah. Minus 230, minus 240. Total 2.5 juice to the over. What do we do with Malkoun as pretty big chalk?
Yeah, anything less than 300, you fire. I actually, for UFC on the Line, the show that I do for their Fight Pass streaming network, I get a bankroll of $1,000. I put 900 of it on Malkoun. He was minus 180. He's now minus 240. So I did my job. Whether he wins or lose, I did my job. That's the art of making money long term. But fortunately for me, the X's and O's and everything else adds up as well. He's just the better fighter, but you're paying for the record of Petrosky because he's 5-1 and coming off his first UFC loss. So it seems like he should bounce back. It was just one bad fight. But if you look at the data and the box score of his fights, what you're going to see is a regression, a constant regression towards the mean as his strength of schedule has gotten tougher. Malkoun, on the flip side, when you look at the data, just cover both names, and here's what you're going to find. If they're striking, Malkoun's got the advantage. Positive strike differential versus negative strike differential, it's not even close. And don't even talk about the power. But then it's the ground game with these two guys. That's what matters most. That's where they're most comfortable. That's where they want to be. And every metric that matters, how much time they're in control position, their takedown accuracy, their sub ratio, how long they're controlled for, every one of those metrics, Malkoun has the advantage, has the huge advantage. So for me, it's an easy bet to lay. If Petrosky wasn't at 5-1 based on a strength of schedule, I think we would be looking at a minus 300 and probably a more like a minus 250 opener. But it opened a little low. The money came in from the sharps. But if you didn't get it, there'll be Petrosky money on Saturday. You always see these MMA lines tend to come back. So if you don't feel comfortable laying that big of a price, you may get a better one on Saturday.
Talking some UFC with Gianni the Greek. We're going to also look at the other sports. I think he even mentioned NBA, college basketball, maybe some tennis. Did you say tennis even? I'm looking forward to that here in a moment. Soccer, that's what it was. I was new as something I would have no clue about, so it's soccer. We're going to get to those in just a moment, but we're going to stick with UFC. You know, it's a main event. It's a women's fight tomorrow in Atlantic City. Kyle Anthony actually broke down the main event yesterday, so I wanted to get your take. There's a couple undercard fights, also female fights. So what's one you're looking at on the undercard?
I love Melissa Gatto. I bet her at 130. I bet her at 135. I bet her at 140. She should be a minus 200 favorite against Dudikova. Once again, you're paying for the Dudikova record, that she's 8-0, that she's 2-0 in the UFC. But dig a little deeper, and what you're going to see is extremely easy strength of schedule. In fact, her 2 UFC wins come against opponents that are combined 2-8 in their UFC careers. When you look at Melissa Gatto, it's the opposite. She's had a much tougher strength of schedule. Her losses come against opponents that's won about 60% of their UFC fights, and she's proven to be able to beat UFC-level competition by beating opponents with at least a 500 record. So it shows they could win UFC fights. And more importantly, I think she's got the edge, at least striking. That's what the data shows, and that's where Dudikova is most comfortable. But it's the ground game of Gatto, which she should be able to implement. She averages about 4 takedowns per 5 minutes, and it looks like Dudikova's got a great takedown defense, close to 70%. But once again, dig a little deeper into the data, and what you're going to find is she's only faced 3 takedowns. So she's just been able to push off 2 of 3 of them. Doesn't mean she's a great defensive wrestler. That time will tell. I like Gatto here. Anything less than minus 200, you're getting the best of it. I released a 4% play on Malkoun, 4% play on Gatto, 4% play on Buckley, and a 2% play on Chris Weidman at plus 200. That's just a small sprinkle because he should only be about plus 150. Also, real quickly, leans in the UFC. Turkali, Buzuki, Emmers, Algeo, Dumas, and in the main event, over the 4.5. So that's everything for Saturday's UFC card.
So we're getting questions in from the Instagram chat asking about the Buckley
Bring 'em.
and Luke fight. I'm sorry?
Yes, sir. Bring the questions. I love the questions. Oh, real quickly, please.
Fight.
No disrespect to the previous guest, but we got to keep the record straight. You always got to keep the record straight because people are watching. And no, in the last fight, the guy with the baby did not win. Actually, the guy who had the baby was kicking his ass in the first round. And after it was an incidental eye poke, the other dude who was getting his ass kicked quit, said, I can't see. And the place went nuts because it was like the slightest tap of his eye. But once again, he was getting beat up. So it was an easy way out. And I always stress, if you're ever going to back a bet because of a trend, make sure you at least have the trend's numbers. Like, this is what it's done over the last 100. This is what it's done over the last 200. And again, no disrespect to the past guest, but saying like it's a great bet, forget about it. When they have a baby, forget about it. Doesn't tell me the winning percentage. Like, I need to know what the winning percentage is. So I see, is there statistical significance? Is there a fundamental reason why this trend should continue? There's a lot of new bettors, and just, again, no disrespect to any capper out there, but just got to keep the record straight. As far as the Luque fight, again, I like Buckley. If this was Luque of 4 years ago, I'd be all over Luque, and he'd be a much higher favorite. You look at strength of schedule, he's had one of the toughest in the UFC, and yet he's won 75% of his fights. I believe he's only closed as a dog once or never. That's how much the market respects Luque. But after all those wars, after all those battles, you can only take so much. And eventually the body starts to deteriorate. And that's what we've seen of Luque of late. Sure, he's coming off a nice win, and it doesn't look like he's a shot fighter, but the trajectories of career are opposite here. And I think Luque's towards the tail end, and Buckley's actually peaking right now and as confident as they come. And when you can get a guy with that kind of power at plus money, you got to look at it. Right now, I know he's probably at minus 105, so he's no longer plus money. But as long as you're not laying more than 150, I really think when we look back, we're going to conclude Buckley should have been about a minus 150, where he actually beats Luque 6 out of 10 times. I know that sounds like MMA blasphemy against someone like Luque, but I promise you, dig into the box score and you'll see this isn't the Luque of 4 years ago. It's not even the Luque of 2.5 years ago.
Little bonus pick in the co-main event and analysis from Gianni the Greek on the Buckley fight, and that came from the Instagram live chat. We love the live chats, not only here on YouTube during the show, but keep in mind you can watch us on the Vertical Reels live on your mobile device now throughout YouTube, on your phones, tablets, on the go, and you can chat on Instagram as well. And by the way, we use that format now for the college basketball show, 2 o'clock Eastern live today, breaking down the Sweet 16 Friday, the Elite 8 Saturday matchups. Also, the NBA tip-off show, 4 o'clock Eastern today. I'll be on both of those, and we answer your live questions during those shows for the games that are about to go off this evening. So it's a great format, a great way to interact with us here on WagerTalk TV. Another reason to hit subscribe and hit that bell as well, so you never miss out when this content goes live each and every day. All right, Gianni, on the way out here, I want to ask you about some baseball. I think Teddy might follow some of the other sports you've got infos on as well. But what are you looking at here for Friday MLB, the second day of the season?
The baby angle's good in all sports. Don't get me wrong, but just be careful with MMA, because a lot of these guys, what happens is they live in Brazil, they live in Russia, they live in other countries, and then they come here and train for 6-8 weeks, 10-12 weeks for their fights. So they're not having that normal day schedule where they're rocking the baby and the baby's waking them up. Sure, for some guys that live near where they're training, that's the case. So I think you got to take it on a case-by-case basis, because a lot of these guys are training in a country that they don't even live in. So rest assured, their families are somewhere else, not really affecting them. Here's what we bet in baseball so far today. We bet the St. Louis Cardinals getting about 2-1 on our money for the game. Bet them also in the first half at about 2-1, and took them plus a half a run at plus 130. When we like a side, because of the limits, we pound it every possible way. We'll bet the side, we'll bet the first half, and the run line. Just like if we like the over, we'll usually bet the over for the game, the over for the first half. We'll look for team totals over. We'll look for runs, hits, and errors over, like I did yesterday, where I gave a total for 3%, and I gave the run hit error for 2%, because I saw that's how they were pounding it. Again, the limits are lower in baseball, and as you've seen from the long-term results, we just crush it over the season. We bet over 8 in Miami, Pittsburgh. We also bet Boston only for the game at plus 135, plus 140. And we bet the Yankees twice. We bet the Yankees for the game and the Yankees for the first half. So that's Yankees first half in game, St. Louis first half in game, Boston game, over 8, Miami, Pittsburgh. So far, that's what I got for baseball.
And before we let you go, at Greek_Gambler on Twitter, college basketball. We've got Sweet 16 tonight. We've got Elite 8 tomorrow. What have you seen? What are you betting? Where's the sharp money flowing on these games?
I got a future on Houston, so obviously I'm cheering in Houston for biased reasons. But the bets I've already placed, I bet Marquette minus 6.5, and I also bet Gonzaga plus 5.5. Going to release them. I like them at 5. They're still good at 5. I like the Gonzaga side, even worth a small sprinkle on Gonzaga. They're the only two I've touched so far in college. In NBA, Brooklyn plus 4, plus Brooklyn money line plus 150, over 212 Knicks San Antonio, over 227 Phoenix Oklahoma City. And the soccer, you guys the lines all probably moved, so you probably don't need it. And best of luck. Again, whether you follow or fade, I just hope you do some damage.
Gianni the Greek, long-term winner to say the least, treated as a true investment. Ace, on the way out, tell us about the Steam Room also, which is part of your package at WagerTalk.com.
Oh, yeah, that's what it's all about. That to me is worth the subscription because I have to come in every single week, off a winning week, off a losing week, and face those people that trusted me with their hard-earned money, where I promised them that if they follow this blueprint long-term, their results should reflect mine. They could reflect mine if they just do the right thing. And I'm able to come in there each and every week and help guide them. If we're having a tough week, a tough month, you're just able to keep everyone in line and repeat those money management processes, and also share a lot of time-sensitive information. While I'm in the chat, stuff's coming in that I can't even release to subscribers because the line's going to move. But anyone that's in that room is able to take advantage of it. We've had a couple MLB props yesterday that came through. So there's a huge advantage. If you are even just going to sign up for the week, jump into the Steam Room. It's well worth your time, and you're free to ask any question. No one else will see it, so no such thing as a dumb question. Make sure you come in, and again, it's very worth your time for sure. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, always great to see you on Fridays. It's Gianni the Greek here, Friday Wager Talk Today. And once again, the baseball season package is available right now through the World Series. That includes the Steam Room. There's also a 90-day, a 3-month sampler with an instant $250 discount with the conference calls also. So check that out on his page at WagerTalk.com. All right, we're going to finish it off now with a view from Vegas. Arthur DiCesare, risk manager at the Superbook at the Westgate in Las Vegas. It's been a while since I've seen Art, so I love doing these Friday shows when he's on. And this is a great time of the year to talk to him. Other than the Super Bowl props, Art, I think talking about March Madness, Sweet 16, Elite 8 is as good as it gets. I'll throw it right to you. Great to see you as always. And how has the tournament gone? Last week, obviously, by the way, we'll get to a big game breakdown. I've got thrown off a little bit here, Teddy. I apologize. We'll do it on the close. But we had Art here, so we figured we'd get him in, get him out, because I know he's a busy man. Arthur, last weekend was huge for the favorites. I don't know how much that affected you guys on Saturday or Sunday, but last night 3 of the 4 dogs came in. So I guess just a quick overview of how things have been going.
Yeah, Steve, good to see you as always, Teddy. I see you every week, so pleasure as always. But yeah, I mean, listen, last Thursday was great. We felt like we gave it all back Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, it was kind of back and forth. So it ended up being a decent first 4. And then we get to last night, we had some significant money on Arizona. So Arizona losing outright like that was really good for us. And Arizona was our biggest loser in the futures pool. If they win the national championship, them and Purdue would have been our biggest outright losers. So getting Arizona out was really wonderful for us.
So that was nothing but smiles. But, I heard some reports that bookmakers around town were not happy with all the favorites covering over the weekend. Although one of them, the Creighton-Oregon game in double overtime, Oregon was probably one of the most popular dogs. So, was that a good game for you guys? Was that the best game of the day on Saturday for you guys? With Creighton winning that in double OT and it going over the total. Talk about some of the decisions that stood out over the weekend, good or bad for the house.
Yeah, that was tough. I was actually on Oregon myself, so that was a tough one.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's the way it goes. But you know what? I always say, and people have asked me this, man, all the favorites are covering. But you got to remember too, early in the tournament, people want to bet underdogs. People want to take, Oakland on the money line and all these other teams. I remember when Utah State played Purdue, there was a lot of people taking Utah State on the money line because they feel in these first couple of rounds there will be upset. So I don't think it was as bad as people thought because all the favorites won. It wasn't like an NFL where, oh my God, all the favorites won and all the public does is bet favorites. A little different in the tournament. Clemson making this run was very surprising because New Mexico was such a popular first round play. A lot of people were on New Mexico. A lot of people had New Mexico as a sleeper to maybe make the Final Four, and now Clemson has the shot to make the Final Four. That's one that really stood out to me. I know me, TCU, I had them in the first round. A lot of people like TCU. That was another one people were pumping. So just a couple that just stand out.
So we've got lines up for 6 more NCAA tournament games, 4 tonight, 2 tomorrow. Talk to me about where the action's coming at the Westgate Superbook here in Las Vegas. Who do the pros like? Who do the Joes like? And does Arthur DiCesare have an opinion on any of the 6 games we've got lined over the next 2 days in big dance action?
Sure, absolutely. Let's start in the South. The South has seen pretty much the least amount of movement from our opening numbers. Marquette, NC State, we opened -6.5, 150.5. Total's gone up half a point. Marquette's gone up half a point to -7. Marquette is in, obviously, all the money line parlays. No surprise there. Out of the 4 games today, that's probably the least bet game of the 4 for us. Houston and Duke, what a matchup, but still not much movement. Open -4, still -4. 134.5, 134.5, kind of bounced back and forth a little bit. That's kind of been sharps are on Houston. Public's going to take Duke. No surprise, public always likes to take Duke, even if it's kind of a down Duke team, which is hard to say because they're in a Sweet 16. Obviously, in the Midwest, seeing a lot more movement. We opened Purdue -4.5. We've moved to 5.5 now. Total was 152.5. Sharps bet that up all the way to 155. Tick down another half point now to 154.5. That is sharp over money. And then this game's been bouncing all over the place. Tennessee and Creighton. We opened Tennessee short favorite -2. Total 143. Total's gone up a full point to 144. And then Creighton got as high as 3. We saw betting on Creighton. Then we ticked back down to 2.5. And now it's gone all the way back up to 3.5. So there's been really good split action on this and sharp action, just to let you know, on both Tennessee early at 2 and 2.5 and Creighton at +3 and +3.5. And yes, Teddy, I do have a pick. I love Houston. I think you're getting a short number on Houston. That number to me is 5.5, 6. The fact that it's -4, I think Houston versus Duke, their pressure, their defense, their athleticism will take Duke out of their game.
Yeah, Arthur, I did my Fade the Public Sweet 16 video for Friday. That's live here on WagerTalk TV. And the more I was digging into that Houston-Duke game, Duke wasn't as maybe alive of a dog as I initially thought when I looked at the card this week. That looked like maybe a potential finals team, whoever wins that game. But if you look at Duke, they lost to UNC twice. They lost to Pitt. They lost to Wake. Those are all the good teams they've played over the last month or so. And then, of course, NC State in the ACC tournament is 11-point favorite. So it's going to be a tough matchup against Houston. 2 really good slate on half court. So fun games to watch this entire week. We got to talk baseball. Opening day was yesterday. I don't know why in the world baseball didn't just wait until Monday, get past the Easter weekend. Probably not going to be a good Sunday for them either, right, with Easter being Sunday. I mean, you go ahead against the Sweet 16. That's what they used to always do. It'd be like the first week in April. So that was a little strange. What was the handle like yesterday compared to other opening days? I know we've had a couple Thursdays now, so you've seen this. But just your thoughts on baseball and maybe any future liability you guys have early on as well.
It's great, Steve, because we were sitting there thinking, man, no one's going to bet these baseball games tonight. Maybe people don't even know that this is really the regular season. Obviously, they started it a week before where no one could watch the games. It was 2 games. They come back, they play exhibition games, and you're going up against the tournament. There was a lot of baseball action yesterday. Baseball was great. And baseball is always great for the parlay bettors, man. They love to put together baseball parlays. So we saw a lot of action coming in, and it was really great. We obviously said it, and we were joking last year about it and joking again this year about it. But, it's going to be fade the A's, fade the Rockies, lay it with the Dodgers. It's going to be that. There's going to have to be a tax soon here on the Dodgers with their money lines, with their run lines, all that type of stuff. Early stuff I've seen today, a little bit of money's come in on Tampa. Tampa obviously coming off the loss yesterday to Toronto. We opened, minus 112, minus 114. Now seeing minus 120, little money there. A couple of dogs taking money. Yankees, who won yesterday, and the Red Sox have seen some money come in. And then a great pitchers matchup. Strider and Wheeler. Braves, Phillies, under money. Open 7.5, under 15. Now 7, minus 110. And no surprise, the public is laying the big favorites like the Dodgers, minus 220, minus 230. Same thing with the Diamondbacks, minus 220.
So talk to me about those two, the Dodgers and the D-backs and the minus $2 and the minus 250s and the minus $3, because we're going to see a lot of that this summer. What I was always told is that when the books make all their money on the days that those teams lose, and the days that they win, it's just they're grinding away, losing a few bucks, and then finally they lose and they make a fortune. Is there anything that you guys can do when it comes to baseball lines, shading them, that protect you from the high-priced favorites that just are rolling, or do you just deal with it? Talk about them. The teams are going to be laying those big prices, like the Dodgers, like the Braves, all summer long.
Yeah, Teddy, there is an aspect of you just deal with it, but you hit it. People are going to come in every day, and those teams, the Braves and Dodgers, are going to be parlay sweeteners. So if one of them loses, obviously all parlays will get killed. And don't get me wrong, you have people who will come in and lay, minus 240 to win a dime, minus 280 to win a dime. I think a thing, too, that obviously happens is they start to look for the run line. I know the Dodgers go on these runs where they win their games, they win by margin. They win by 2 or more. So, if you're dealing minus 1.5, minus a quarter, maybe you start going to 30, 35. Maybe you have to
inflate the favorite line a little bit. The problem, of course, as you know, Art, is once you get in that $2 range, you're not dealing with a 10-cent split anymore, even a 20-cent split. It's a 30, 40-cent split. So in general, other than the parlay liability, you guys pretty much always win money year after year on these big favorites just because you're dealing with a 40-cent split between the dog and the favorite. I mean, I know you need a bigger split because your theoretical hold goes down as the number gets bigger, but it's just something I've always said. Someone's like, the Dodgers are a great example. I'll quickly use this analogy. If they win 67% of their games this year, they have to win 109 games. That's the average price of minus $2, right? And they're going to be laying more than $2, I'd say, in most of their games this year. But they'd have to be like a 110-win team or better just to break even at those prices. Yet it doesn't mean you blindly play against them either because you're taking 30, 40 cents less on the dog in those games. So just your thoughts on big favorites. How does that work out for the house? Maybe explain why the margins are bigger on those games.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it, Steve. You just mentioned it, right? They're minus 220, minus 230 yesterday against, a 70, 80 win team in the Cardinals. What's going to happen when they play the Rockies? I mean, that's going to be minus $5, minus $6. I mean, it's just going to be that way. We're going to be putting up minus 2.5. We're going to have no choice but to do that on the run line. But you're right. It obviously does go up, splits widen a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong. You're going to get the players who come in on the other side and say, okay, if everyone else in the world is plus $2 on the Rockies, but you're going to give me plus 210, plus 215, you do get those bettors. You get them. There's plenty of them who want to come and clean up the board. So, you do get that as well. But, yeah, it's going to be an interesting process for us with these big favorites because there really are 3, 4, maybe even 5 teams. You throw the White Sox in there. Obviously, we mentioned Oakland. There's really some bottom-feeding baseball teams that you're going to just, you're going to have to fight against all year.
Yeah, I want to also thank Arthur now for – what's that, Teddy?
You go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just want to thank Arthur not for only coming on almost every Friday this year, football, baseball, basketball season, but also the Westbook, the Superbook at the Westgate, the Superbook really is one of the few books remaining that's giving you fair lines on baseball. And I just want to point that out to everybody. I appreciate that as a bettor. And if you check the WagerTalk live odds screen, you'll see what I'm talking about. A lot of the ones around the country now, you're not even getting minus 110 on totals in sports anymore. And you guys are still dealing a true 10-cent baseball line up to certain numbers, which is also becoming lost, unfortunately. So once again, let us know what you got going on, Arthur, at the Westgate Superbook. It's a mouthful this morning. I don't know why I'm having problems.
Yeah, guys, as always, listen, pleasure coming on, Steve. Pleasure seeing you. I don't get to see you as much. But, listen, guys, come down to the Westgate. A lot going on. Obviously, tournament wrapping up. Baseball just underway. And obviously, in a couple of weeks, NBA and NHL playoffs will be right around the corner. So, and then obviously, look out for some NFL stuff coming too. Once the draft happens, schedule happens, we'll start putting out NFL things, win totals, divisions, all those things. So always a lot of fun happening down at the Westgate. And if anyone ever needs any hand, you could reach out to me on Twitter. You could reach out to me in the book if I'm there, and I'm more than happy to help.
And when you reach out to him in the book, you yell his name super loud. He comes out quicker. That's what the Prez has told me. I don't know where the Prez is this week, Arthur, but I don't think he's in Vegas, so he might be safe. Prez will be back on Monday. That is Arthur DiCesare, risk supervisor at the Superbook at the Westgate in Las Vegas, Nevada. And once again, check out those WagerTalk live odds screens. You'll see what I'm talking about. Baseball is the ultimate line shop, and Teddy and I preach that all the time. You've got some books dealing a 25-cent on the line, game on the line, and Westgate has an 11-cent line on that right now. And that's a Vegas book and a worldwide book I'm talking about. So once again, it's so important to have multiple outs. It's just free money with baseball because every cent matters. It adds to your profit during this MLB grind, like Teddy talked about earlier in the show. College basketball tip-off show at 2 o'clock Eastern. But coming up next in a little bit will be the baseball show and also the NBA tip-off show at 4 Eastern, live interactive basketball shows. We take your questions. We answer them on the air. Don't forget my Fade the Public Sweet 16 video for all 4 college basketball games is on the channel right now. I will also have a Saturday and Sunday edition for both Elite 8 rounds. Hit subscribe and hit the bell as well so you know when those go live. Comment below. I read all the comments. We all reply back. Let us know your thoughts on the Sweet 16, other baseball best bets you like tonight. And Teddy, take us home. It was enjoyed doing the show with you. And the Prez will be back on Monday. No April Fooling.
Sure. Let me get a big game breakdown in before.
I'm sorry, my man. I keep trying to skip this big game breakdown on you.
And that would be Gonzaga and Purdue. Right now, look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. It's a split line. You can lay -5 with Purdue. You can take +5.5 with Gonzaga. As a bettor, we love games like this. Get the best of the number without having to lay any extra juice. And all that means is making sure if you're laying, you're -5. If you're taking, you're +5.5. All that means is having multiple accounts. Easy enough to do. I'm going to start this breakdown talking about UConn. UConn, 9-0 against the spread in the NCAA tournament over the last 2 years. The markets can't price them high enough. Teams that survive and advance usually make their backers money. Look what Purdue has done in this year's tournament. Not last year, this year's tournament. All right? Blowout win, blowout win. And I know they weren't against elite competition. Nonetheless, 2-0 straight up, 2-0 against the spread. We talked about it on this show last week. Purdue beat Gonzaga, the only rematch from the regular season. And it was early season play. There was nothing in there in that matchup that I think was particularly problematic when you're trying to figure out what the rematch is going to look like. But there's one thing that really stood out to me when you look at Gonzaga's season. All right. And again, I'm not talking about beating McNeese State or a banged up Kansas team with a coach who was talking about next season and said he was doing it for the last month after they lost. But I'm talking about Gonzaga's full season numbers. And when you go through the results, it stands out like a sore thumb. Gonzaga does not respond well to elite level defenses. Their only losses by margin all year came against these 4 teams: St. Mary's, UConn, San Diego State, and Purdue. All 4 of those teams top 20 in defensive efficiency based on the Ken Pom metrics. That problematic matchup in the first meeting is a problematic matchup in the second meeting. If I'm playing, I'm laying. I think Purdue take care of business. They've been an undervalued commodity in this tournament, and they're still an undervalued commodity tonight. The Zags go down. Take the Boilermakers minus the points. And there's your big game breakdown. That's going to wrap it for the week here on WagerTalk Today. We'll do it again tomorrow. No, we won't. We'll do it again on Monday. Same time, same channel, 9 a.m. here.
I messed you up finally. I've been trying the whole show. That's why I wasn't doing your big game breakdown, Teddy. Just trying to get you before the Prez comes back on Monday.
It worked. But that will wrap it up for the week. We'll see you guys on Monday. Enjoy the games and best of luck with all your wagers.